Well, hello, hello. Welcome back. I'm just going to push play on the Facebook page. Well, hello, hello. Welcome back to day 2 of the wetoo Cathedral of Change, where we are really deepening into our right relationship, not only with ourselves, but really going back to the basics. So while I wait for you all to trickle in here, I'll just recap on what we spoke about yesterday when we talked to Watiko and this virus of the mind, and also the luminal space where so many of us are finding ourselves between worlds, and really asking those deep questions of how can we use some of the tools that we have from the heart, from the ancient wisdom of what our ancestors gave to us in times of challenge, to be able to contribute to better, because we all want better. And I really want to honor all of you that posted your insights and were very vulnerable in what was coming up for you. I really appreciate this. This only works because you work. And hi, Christina. Hi, Sue. So happy that you're here, because we have to be in it to win it, as they say. And if you're not being an active participant of your life, then we really can't live into the legacy that we came here to share with everybody else. So I'm just trying to figure out how I can see Zoom. I'm recording on Zoom as a backup in case we have a glitch with Facebook. Okay. So let me know. Hi, Christina. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for sharing what was coming up for you, where you were really being hard on yourself yesterday, and also coming back to your heart and recognizing that there are so many gifts in the shadows. And again, I want to just give a shout out to all of you that have contributed towards the Feeding the Furballs by participating in this challenge and paying it forward, because I really believe that that's one of the big keys of the thank you, which is one of the 5 basic words that we're going to go into. That when we give from the heart, when we think in our minds that we don't have enough to give, that's really where the universe meets us and shares and reciprocates in our generosity. So thank you for helping to feed some feral cats that are very much in need of food and have become very reliant on the people that feed them. So give me a hell yes in the comments if you are with me as we sort of move into this, and let me know how you are finding it so far, because we really are going to go back to the basics today of really getting in touch with a higher realization of practice, where we can be present to what is missing and also staying with it, right? That's that waiting room that I was talking about yesterday. That's not always blissful, and it's not easy. It's often very uncomfortable, but it also benefits us by informing us of the truth that is true for us. Remember, what's true for you doesn't necessarily have to be true for anybody else. And this really is the crisis on the planet right now, and why I am so behind this wetoo movement that you guys are the pioneers of, because we need you to get out there and respond in a way that's going to illuminate a different possibility for others that are perhaps shut down or synergistic. I want to say cynical about this stuff that can be kind of woo. So just type yes, I am, that I'm with you in the comments if you're getting where we're going energetically, really feeling it, so that you can heal the parts in you that are fragmented or still tied up in some of this old programming of feeling like we don't have choice. and recognizing that we can find our way with a different level of freedom and commitment. And as a part of that, not to just be all about our own awakening, but we're really coming together and rolling up our sleeves and doing what is being asked from us, to be engaged with volunteer work and contribute in whatever way, shape, or form to what is unfolding in this time that sacred activism is so needed right now. So how do we take new strides into the unknown in right relationship with each other and all of life, all of nature? Because we are connected to that. We are part of nature. And I think this is something that we often forget when we sort of individuate from the connectedness and oneness of all things, and we go into that I amness that often creates the opposite of what we're looking for. And because you're all very sensitive and intuitive beings that really care about a healthier way of being human in this crisis of fragmentation, where we know we need to turn to one another and attempt to be that wholeness. Really, heal comes from the word whole, together, so that when we encounter limits that we tend to experience and impose on one another, because that's part of being human, that we can recognize and identify and acknowledge it, and then bring the best of ourselves forward by really rooting together in a community like this, and be on that leading edge of what it means to really be human kindness. So I really believe that it is us emerging into a superhuman organism that is functioning on a whole new level of being, that is allowing us to show up in communities like this and in society without this virus of the mind, the wahiko, that often distorts how we be with one another. And we're not there yet. Okay, so take a deep breath and just give yourself a big energetic body hug, because we're all doing the best that we can with what we have, and we're all bringing our individual parts and pieces, our own gifts into this cosmic soup, because that is what is being required of us in this tipping point, where we have to up our own game and go through transformations in our own businesses and our friends and our love language, and look at how we engage with one another. Because how we talk with one another, I don't know, but I've really been mindful of this over the last couple of weeks, where I often find it really, really hard to listen. So if you can relate, give me a yes in the comments. Because we're so used to stepping in with the solution, and we often miss the gift of the process of the clairaudience and the verbal processing that goes on when we are sharing our most vulnerable parts with each other. And when someone else is trying to offer their piece in a way that allows them to metabolize and process and integrate and then respond, is the way that we up level, and what we're doing in this group. So if all of us are doing that, does it make sense that when we get into new territories of growth, where there is no map other than tapping back into the ancient wisdom of the basics on which humanity is built, that's how we're going to create a higher uplifting presence in the world, and also how we get to actualize our own individual presence in the world. And I know that you wouldn't be here if you weren't like me and wanting to find a way into both the 3D reality and the virtual communities like this, where we're doing the inner work and also doing the outer work with others to raise up their level of function, and really embodying the beingness, the isness that is the change that we want to see in the world. So I want us to continue to belong together, because these are these important conversations that are cross world boundaries, like spirituality and science, who don't usually listen to each other or listen to the soul of the earth or our own ecology, in how we come home to the heart and how we can learn in a sustainable relationship to really give back to our own life support systems, to the air that we're breathing, and the trees that are cleaning the air for us, and the soil that's giving us the food that we put on our table, and everything else. And this I know most of you know that heart maths has probably done the most work in showing that there is this toroidal field that's around both the heart brain and the head brain and the gut brain. And that when we remain in the head, this is where we create incoherence, right? This is the wahiko, that virus of the mind that takes over the knowing of our heart. And that is when we label emotions and we identify them and we do everything else. And when we allow them, we then let them flow out. And that is the way that we increase the connection between our heads, our heart, our head, and our stomach brains. So the next time that you're feeling any kind of negative emotions, just try to first be aware of what you're feeling, and don't label it, just be aware. And I shout out again to Sherry and Christina and so many of you that sort of posted about where you met yourself there, with that kind, compassionate, loving space after you'd beaten yourself up. So that I think that the most important thing to remember here is that we are in training, right? These are the training days, and we have to be willing to hold ourselves like we would an innocent baby that needs to be cared for in a loving way, and to not continue those patterns of abuse that have been passed on to us intergenerationally and in our families and in our very DNA, RNA, in the morphic field of humanity, and where humanity has separated out from nature. So just remember that your emotions are your greatest gift, because they're always telling you where you are in relationship to what you're thinking or focusing on. So just ask that amplification of awareness allows you to get the clarity that you want, and then let it go. So today I want us to really look at where we need to be willing to acknowledge that we have choice to either feed the virus of the mind held in the stories of the past, or where we are choosing, consciously choosing, intentionally choosing to create a new future and a new story without bringing the old virus into play. Because it's a struggle to find the facts in the flood of all the misinformation, where we as a culture are awash in Wetiko. So most of Wetiko, just remember, is much more subtle, or it has been in the past, where it would make its way to the mind, opened by your own fear of failure, by your own selfishness with your gifts, by your own self-loathing, and things like the inner saboteur, that voice of Wetiko that's saying, I can't take the risk, I might get hurt, that there's always something to lose, and that is in itself selfishness with your gifts, because your greatest wounds are what you came here to share in your transformation of them with other people that might be where you were. So the point here is that I want to make is, how do we watch this virus of the mind literally infecting everything out there, that it is also within us, and knowing that we have a choice. We either choose to be a carrier of the virus that brings it across to a new world, or we get to choose to become immune to Wetiko by doing the work, by asking for help, by being vulnerable in our sharing. Because there are no in-betweens here. You're either pregnant or you're not. There's no maybe. And it's the same with this, that we have to watch how we're living into the old history that's repeating itself. I mean, we just have to look at what's going on in America, in Britain, in Africa, in Europe. In fact, there is no part of the world right now that isn't immune to Wetiko. When we sort of watch war continuing to crawl across country to country, and, just in my own reality of coming from Zimbabwe and seeing people killing each other, because of the corruption in the government, and feeling like they have no voice. And in South Africa, where people of lower vibrational entities of that old 3D are saying, kill the whites, take back the land, or Trump wanting to build a wall and create more separation instead of seeing the value of each person with compassion and kindness. So we have to remember that we're playing our part in it and being literally being shaken awake right now by Wetiko, okay? So that we do not carry these old stories into a new reality where we are literally creating and pioneering uncharted territory. And this is where asking for guidance from our spirit team players and our animal guides and our ancestral helping spirits and the angels is really, really good, because we need to learn from that wisdom so that it can come into play to support us all in moving out of the waiting room, out of this luminal space with more ease and more flow and more grace. And yes, this is why it's called the work. The mastery of being the best human being that we can be does mean that we have to do the uncomfortable work. And it does mean that there will be sacrifice. And I find myself grappling with that on so many levels, because it's not always easy to say no to supermarkets that are wrapping beautiful produce that's come straight out of the earth in plastic and styrofoam, and to drive a little bit further to go and support my local farmers market and bring my own beautiful wicker basket to fill. So my question today is, are you willing to make sacrifices of comfort and distractions and start cultivating the dignity of your soul? Are you willing to recognize, when I talk about what is going on under the surface out there, that we're also talking about tuning into what is going on under the surface of our own reality inside of us? Because when you get that you're not your mind, which we talked about yesterday, does it make sense that you begin to realize other things are possible and other things matter, like the dignity of your soul and the nobility of your human spirit? These matter to me. And they are those old ideas that matter right now, right? Getting back to the basics. So a question that helps us, so this is part of your journey work going forward for today, is to ask, who are you being at this time in the world? And as it shifts and changes and breaks down right before your eyes, and you go into that silent witness or observer mode, then you can start looking at, why do I keep doing the same thing over and over again that are not good for me? And that's where the magic is. That's where the alchemy is, when we start to discover, oh, that's right, I've already created shadow within myself. Cute, not bright, right? Shadow and Wetiko are not the same thing. They're two very different entities. So when we start to be able to see what's going on around us, then we can see who we really are within the reality of the chaos that is going on around us. And that is shadow, where we can track the old patterns of disharmony within ourselves and then get aligned to the imaginal. So acting as if you already have it, right? That thing that you're asking for, that is better, that taps you back into your ability to fully engage with living deeply happy into your own aliveness. So today we're going to go back to explore that essential, basic, before we can get to the yes and the no. So let's look at the question of that. Now that you know that you're not your thoughts, but you're the one who thinks the thoughts and is employing your mind to gain better understanding and awareness of just how easy it is to get hooked back into those old patterns of Wetiko and that programming of separation. Because then we know how many no's we need to have in order to get to one true yes, and why it should matter. Because what I see that undermines the power of this transformational work that we're all trying to do and there are several patterns of that, but I want to talk to just one at the moment. And that is that on the one hand, we're trying very, very hard to do the work. And then on the other hand, we're undoing all the transformational work that we're doing. So we're all, and I find myself there often, this is where we have to look in the contrasts and see the gifts there of the duality that we're living in, where we're literally going in two directions at once, and we often don't see that, right? That's why they're called blind spots. That's why this is shadow work. And this is a very common pattern that arises from people who jump over the basics. And as more and more people come into these cycle teachings with previous experience in other trainings, I know most of you have done a lot of personal transformation work. But this is where I see, and I'm not judging and I'm not blaming or shaming anybody here, but this is where I've really started to see the pattern of abuse, where a lot of people who've done other trainings or spiritual or shamanic work come in with a higher experience ratio to those who are new to this work. And what I'm seeing more and more is that people who think they have the basics handled, and I was guilty of that myself, but they think they have the basics handled, but there's some wide basics that are missing, and these are fundamental wide humanity basics that have to do with the happiness of your energy body. So in other words, people who are using these higher level spiritual teachings, they've been taught, but those teachings haven't been taught around the fundamental basics of knowledge on the energy bodies. So when you come out of those teachings with a basic energy body that is functioning, the practices don't work. I mean, have you been there? If you have, give me a yes if you're still with me and this is making sense, because I'm going quite quickly through this. And don't worry, you will have the recording to listen. And I really want you to grasp these basics and start living them as part of your legacy. Because part of the reason I think that we skip over the basics is because they're basics of humanity. These are the things that we're supposed to be taught in a healthy family or in a village or a culture. They would have been taught to us as children. And that's not happening anymore for the large part, especially in the Western world. So many are skipping over the basics because of a particular lifestyle. And I'll use a crazy example that came up today, where we start to see the trappings of this is, someone said to me, well, I'm growing medical marijuana, so I'm already cool. I'm not like Mr. White Coat or the guy on Wall Street, and I don't need to do the basics because I'm already cool because I'm growing medical marijuana. And that is a simple... I know that's a very simple example, but you get the gist of what I'm saying here, I hope. Give me a yes in the comments if you are. Because this is the basic understanding of a very complex issue that is creating a lot of the issues that are plaguing humanity right now and causing so much trauma, drama, and emergency. And I see thousands of different examples of where people step over the basics. And I'm talking about the basics of these 5 words that we're going to explore over the next couple of days, because it's like I've identified with a particular lifestyle by definition, so that implies that I've already done these things. And I think that it's important to really just own that if you've been someone very well-meaning that has no understanding of, for example, neuroplasticity or how the body works under trauma, or what your nervous system does when you start to clear out some of this old programming, and you jump into a practice that you have been probably spent a lot of money learning. I did that too. But you jump into that particular practice as if it is the one and only way, and you bypass the basics. And it's just like, oh, well, just run this verbal process, or I'll just, run this on your body without any knowledge or foundation of how to support that person's body in moving through any of the various multitudes of ideas of trauma in the body that might come up for them. And this is where I think it's a very dangerous, very slippery slope. that certainly has brought up a great deal of consternation in my own work, in looking at all the new age work out there, where when we don't do our inner work and we just want to avoid the pain, because let's face it, avoiding the pain is doing a lot of damage, even though it may be well-meaning. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. So I'll leave it at that. But it's a place that I certainly have found myself over the years being sucked into something that hasn't had the integrity of a whole integral system, and the education and the knowledge that's necessary to do the transformational work that actually sustains, because it has no real foundation of reverence and honoring, not just to the work, but to how you are showing up in it. And again, there's no blaming or shaming here, but I want you to get that it's not your fault. It's just the bad training of this insane asylum we're all committed to, and nobody knows until we know. And oftentimes we just want to avoid the pain of actually dealing with the basics. I don't know if you've noticed, but society and this instant gratification of technology that I sort of see as a nightmare even with my own prepubescent daughter, is where everything is at your fingertips, and everyone wants a magic pill, and they want the quick fix. And it's feeding into this place where people just want to avoid the pain of dealing with the core principles of life, because those are the ones that are deeply rooted in the basics, and they're boring. It's boring and it's monotonous. But you have to do them every day, which is why it's called a practice. The magic happens in the training, in the consistency, in the willingness to have a beginner's mind and to grow from that space. And there are no bells and whistles of transformation, but they are the bedrock of allowing not only the transformation to fully run their course, but to then take root in you and become the new you, versus cycling through one transformation after another and not getting anywhere because it's not rooted in the integrity of a holistic system. And you're part of that system. So, it's like a lot of people that come to me are completely messed up, and they say, but I'm doing the work, and I'm engaged in transformation, and I'm walking the spiral path of shamanism because I do ayahuasca. And I'm like, awesome. How's that working for you? What's going on with that? And they say, well, I've taken ayahuasca 300 times and I'm still a mess. So where are the basics? And how do we explore that is really what I want to deepen into today with you, is where do you start? And I think, again, it's about coming back to the basics in the direction of north, which is the death of the old story and the rebirth cycle of the new stories, starting in the supramental level of the mind, and knowing that you have knowingly or unknowingly been infected by the virus of the mind, by wetoo. And now that you know that, you are in the process of choosing who you are being and how you want to show up in the world. So going back to the basics of learning to say 5 things with honesty and authenticity, and I mean with a whole heart, right? That's what Brene Brown calls braving the wilderness, is to be willing to show up with a whole heart and say it like you mean it, and to do that in the right timing. And I really want you to hear that, because it's not just the 5 magic words that you are spelling into being, but saying it like you mean it at the right time with a full body yes and a full body mind. So remember, there's a season for everything, and we have to be able to see it clearly, and also to tune in to the deep down of your internal garden, your intuitive sense, to stay present to it, which means standing in the truth, deeply rooted in trusting yourself to know what you know and know how you're going to move forward in the chaos and the density of the old story. And when there is a time to respond and when there's a time to stay in the waiting room. And that is the basics of living into the yes, the no, the please, the thank you, and I'm sorry, which in the Hawaiian prayer, as you all know, is the Ho'oponopono. It's very basic, but it's intrinsically part of what makes us humankind. So, I'm always somewhat surprised that there's so many people who are doing their inner work, walking the spiral path of shamanism, that have still not been able to offer up an honest please or thank you or an apology when they need to. And I'm not going to turn this into a rant, but how surprised are you in your life and in your daily dealings with people that they're not practicing that minute by minute appreciation and presence of fertile listening, and also this ask so that you can give and receive in order to grow, not just for yourself, but to create a win-win for everyone, including the sentience, including the insects, the plant life, the winds, all of it. I think that people don't realize the power of the fundamental principles that our ancient ancestors knew. That was intrinsically what made you a good human being. And where the laws of abundance were in that reciprocity, right? The laws of compensation are that when you can say thank you and really mean it, to have deep appreciation and gratitude, we get that mirrored back to us. I mean, we just have to look at the Bushmen of Africa who always prayed in their dream state the night before they were going on a hunt. They would go into that quantum field of calling in the animal that was willing to sacrifice their life so that they could sustain their bodies. And that when they went out on the hunt, they had already said please and thank you and I'm sorry. And there was a great reverence in that reciprocity between the animal and the Bushman. And we have forgotten that. I think Sherry gave us a great example to build on for our own life of blessing our food, thanking the people that grew it or the animals if you meet that sacrificed their lives so that you could sustain yours. And it's just amazing. I think Oprah Winfrey was one of the first sort of pioneers of life transformational work, and she's been doing it for decades, speaking about this, that people, and yet people are even further removed from appreciating what they do have available to them, and looking at how resourceful we are as human beings when we are kind of lean on the resources. So for those of you who are here, I know you're action takers. And I made that really, really easy for you in showing up here, but also in many other ways. And if you go to my YouTube channel and you want to, commit to maybe doing 30 days of just deepening into appreciation, because you know that what you appreciate appreciates, there's 30 days of daily prompts there that take you through various ways to really widen your perspective and come back into right relationship with your heart and your soul through gratitude, through saying thank you for appreciating what you have. And you'll see everything starts to change. Thank you for the hearts and the love. When you go back to living a legacy of these basics. Yes, no, please, thank you, and I am so sorry. And say it like you mean it, right? That is intentional creativity. That is response rather than reactivity. So we stop scaring ourselves sick from this virus of the mind that says that there's something to be afraid of in showing your vulnerability and keeping your heart open. So that's kind of your play work for today, is to post in the comments one thing Okay, so this is your play work, and this is going to go and enter you into that daily challenge of the more comments and insights that you share, you're going to stand a chance to win a 60-day clarity session with me to use however you want. But just post in the comments one thing that you said yes to, that you're saying no to, that you're saying please to, that you're saying thank you for, and that you're saying I'm sorry for. So just spend some time between now and when we meet tomorrow, going back to those basics. And instead of undoing all this beautiful transformational work that you're doing in your life, and in here, in contrast to the parts that you are transforming and then wondering why you keep getting stuck in that same old problem or belief system that's limiting you from sharing your gifts, go back to the basics. And I want you to really write out a commitment statement to renew your being in the Ho'oponopono. Because remember, every day of this challenge, we're going deeper and deeper and engaging in coming full circle back to our hearts in community, right? In this wetoo movement. And I really want you to post away. So let's get that energy moving amongst us. And I know a lot of you haven't managed to make the live calls because of your busy lives and time frame. I know some of you in Australia and New Zealand, and you're tucked up in your beds fast asleep and look at the replays in the morning. But let's just get going in here. Let's stir up the energy that's so needed right now. And I'll meet you back here, same place tomorrow, where we're going to move into the direction of the West and the element of earth, and how you can really start to trust your true yes. So I hope that sounds like fun. And just remember that you're turning yourself into this miracle that is life as your beloved. And in the spirit of connection, I just ask you to keep your heart open to being you, and so that others can hear your voice as grace itself, as love, as an animated life force in all of us as living beings. You who are the beauty and the mystery and the truth and the goodness that's bigger than all of your ideas of how big and amazing you are. So I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for stepping up your game. Just know you're a force of integrity, and you are so needed within this crisis of fragmentation that is stimulating a response that doesn't leave out the head or the heart or the gut brain. You are the center of change. You are the epicenter of the universe, and you are downloading every day and feeling it all so that you can really bring that into right relationship, not just for you, but for me, for your community, and for the rest of the world that maybe isn't there yet. So, just in closing, I want you to just close your eyes, and I want you to just think back to the last time that you really felt connected in this way. And you can think about any life situation or person that maybe has stirred up these same or very similar feelings, where you are so hungry for change and longing for a deeper connection that's really trustworthy. And just notice and spend a couple of minutes after this just journaling on what you came up with, and if you'd be willing to go back further. So, you can go right back to your earliest experience of feeling connected or feeling unconnected or separated. So don't worry if you can't remember, because there's no need to remember what, in psychology we call the originating incident. But just tap into that, and allow yourself the gentleness and the patience and the presence to just release any residual imprinting or grief or anger that might be brewing up for you as we kind of deepen into this work. And notice if you feel any resistance to feeling the emotional root of your current situation, or any pain that might be being stirred up for you right now. Because resistance is part of Watiko when it's not in a healthy stress that grows us. And this is where we find ourselves often making excuses or going into judgments of yourself or other people, or, you know, minimizing, you know, telling yourself that it didn't really matter, or it's not a big deal, or you're fine, or thinking that no one cares. So, you know, why bother anyway? Um, I care, and you care, and that's all that matters. So know that you're enough. Trust that you have everything that you need. No more roadblocks, and just set some very clear intentions right now, um, to deepen into those basic five words. Let go of everything else just for now, um, because this is where you're going to really find the magic and the alchemy happens in those five little, very powerful words. You're here, you're ready to feel, and you're open and willing to receive the assistance and guidance and support that you need. And thank you again for being part of this amazing community. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the time again, and I've gone so long. So let me know if this is just too long for you. And as much as I set the intention, I'm a verbal processor. So if you're here, I know that you get that, and that there's no apology needed. But let's see if we can get it a little shorter tomorrow. You know, I don't want to skim through this or minimize it, because this is where we need to go back to those foundational principles of those five little basic words. So I'll love and leave you. Have a beautiful rest of the day wherever you are, and comment, share your insights, ask for what you need, and know that this is a very safe, loving community, that is gathering here because we are building the We Too movement that is so needed on the planet. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. All right, everybody, lots of love. Bye. Mwah.